This funny and seemingly rather clumsy animal bears the formidable name of the leopard seal. But as soon as he finds himself in the water, it will immediately become clear who is who, because this is a real thunderstorm of the southern seas. The leopard seal belongs to the family of true seals and lives exclusively in Antarctica, terrifying its neighbors. After all, he is the only one of his family who feeds mainly on warm-blooded animals, and he is well prepared for such a hunt. Leopard seals grow up to 10 feet in length and weigh about 660 pounds. And it is only the males and females that boast a length of up to 13 feet and a weight of up to 900 pounds. A lot, you say, but it's not like that. The fact is that its relatives, for example, elephant seals, with a similar length, can weigh 3.5 times more. He has a very thin layer of subcutaneous fat, and it is surprising how this hunter does not freeze in such harsh conditions. The leopard seal has a very long, streamlined body, allowing it to accelerate in water up to 25 miles per hour. In addition, it is incredibly flexible and can instantly change direction of movement. And for particularly tasty prey, he is able to dive to a depth of 980 feet. Interestingly, when diving, the nostrils automatically close, and there is a special muscle in the throat that blocks the flow of water into the throat. When this underwater fighter opens its mouth, by the way, it contains 2 rows of sharp teeth and powerful fangs. What else does the ideal hunter need? Of course, a protective coloring and a ferocious disposition. And our hero has all this. Its skin is dark gray on top and light, almost white, on the bottom, which allows it to blend in with the ice flows and makes it difficult to detect in the water column. By the way, there are spots on it, including from which the predator got its name. And all Antarctic residents know about aggressiveness. The leopard seal has little interest in fish. Give it something bigger, and the prey often includes Weddell seals, crab-eater seals, and even baby elephant seals. The predator catches them right in the water and grabs them with its powerful jaws. Almost every seal and crab-eater has a scar on its body from an encounter with a leopard seal. The leopard seal does not attack large seals and can rest peacefully with them on an ice floe, although in the water it does not tolerate competitors and is aggressive even towards its relatives, not to mention other seals. Depending on their habitat, leopard seals sometimes prefer penguins, which can make up to 80% of a hunter's diet. And here, the real skill of the predator is manifested, because it uses different tactics depending on the surrounding conditions. The leopard knows that penguins need to get into the water to feed their offspring, so it simply watches for its prey near the ice flows. The penguin carefully peers into the water and nevertheless then jumps, but he immediately crawls back out and moves back. The second attempt and the animals, moving a little to the side as a whole heap, dive into the water and emerge from the water in the same heap because a hungry leopard seal is swimming there. Just look at this daredevil in the distance. The slightest delay and the leopard would have grabbed him. And the penguins immediately run away from the edge because they know how cunning their enemy is. He can easily lean out of the water and grab the penguin if it is close, and then the poor thing can no longer be saved. Often a predator jumps out onto ice floes to drive penguins into a trap, and then, despite its clumsiness, it easily overtakes its prey. But the penguin has a trick. He pretends to be dead, and when the leopard loosens his grip to intercept the victim, the bird quickly runs away. But sometimes, as befits a top predator, it can play with its prey without killing it outright. It is believed that he does this to train his hunting abilities. But in this case, the penguin has a small chance of salvation, which he took advantage of. Broken ice floes are a very dangerous place. They cover the water, and it is very difficult for penguins to move there. And a leopard can swim underwater, looking for an easy lunch. But here, the leopard even pushed the penguin forward and allowed him to climb onto the ice floe and then climbed there himself. But apparently he was surprised by the courage of the bird, which refused to run away, and the hunter returned to the water. Although such a smart hunter sometimes takes an unusual step and waits for the penguins on the ice floe. Then the unsuspecting bird finds itself in the teeth of a leopard seal, and it is very difficult to escape from there. But penguins are also no slouch, and catching up with an experienced adult penguin is often beyond the power of even a leopard seal. With numbers on their side, they jump into the water in groups to create confusion and increase their chances of success. The teeth of a predator are not adapted to chew food, therefore, having caught its prey, the leopard seal, like a crocodile, throws it to the side, trying to tear off large pieces. Such a feast always attracts seagulls, who, as always, want their share. The remains of food fall to the bottom, where scavengers happily eat them. Nothing goes to waste in the sea, which is interesting. The leopard seal is not at all afraid of humans and often swims close to them. But I would definitely be afraid to play like that with such a guest, especially since there is an officially registered attack. In 2003, British scientist Christy Brown became the victim of a leopard seal. The predator held the girl in the depths with his teeth for more than 5 minutes until she suffocated. And although this is the only such attack, you need to be very careful with a leopard seal. For example, an animal can easily emerge from the water and calmly bite through a boat. If there are no large prey on the horizon, the leopard seal does not despair, because it can feed on small crustaceans and krill. And sometimes, the share of such prey reaches up to 50% of the diet. Through the hole between the side teeth, this cunning man filters water and filters everything edible, so that one can only envy his adaptability. By the way, if there is a lot of krill in the water, then our hero is less likely to attack seals and penguins. Like killer whales, the leopard seal is a master of underwater hunting and the dominant predator in Antarctica. The only difference being that it is a solitary hunter, and there is practically no contact between individuals. Only in the summer, from November to February, do they unite in small groups to procreate. And after 9 months, the female gives birth to a single 5-foot calf, which weighs not less than 66 pounds. For 4 weeks, he eats only the milk of his mother, who is so fat that the baby literally eats it, and then switches to underwater food. This is when the ability of leopard seals to feed on krill comes in handy, because they can't get penguins yet. And such predators live for quite a long time, up to 26 years. Oddly enough, people do not hunt leopard seals. Perhaps that is why their population numbers more than 400,000 individuals, and they are not at all threatened with extinction. At least someone must control the number of penguins. The Amazon is not the most pleasant place for swimming, because its muddy waters are home to a huge number of creatures, meeting with which does not bode well. Anacondas, piranhas, black caimans, and even vampire fish are just a small part of the dangerous river monsters. But our hero today differs from this gang in that he hunts with the help of an electric current with a discharge of up to 860 volts. You are on the channel Animal Instinct, and today we have an electric eel in action for review. And of course, do not forget to like this unusual fish and subscribe to the channel. Sit back, we are getting started. So the electric eel is a very strange fish. Let's start with the fact that it has only an elongated body shape and a developed dorsal fin in common with the common eel. In all other respects, these fish are very different, because our hero belongs to the gymnotiforms family, and its closest relatives are, oddly enough, carp and salamanders. But do not rush to rejoice and look for this floating battery, because electric eels live only in South America, in the Amazon and Orinoco river basins, where they have chosen small channels, lakes, and swamps. The water there is quite muddy, and the amount of oxygen is minimal. But eels simply love to live in such conditions, because it is very easy for them to hide, disguised as a snag. This is facilitated by the long, elongated brownish body of the fish, growing more than 7 feet in length and weighing up to 45 pounds. Interestingly, swimming in the mud does not interfere with the eel's breathing at all, because it gets most of the oxygen from the air. In its oral cavity, there are special areas of vascular tissue that directly absorb atmospheric oxygen. Thanks to this feature, the eel is able to stay alive on land for up to 2 hours, although its body must remain moist for this. But when in the water, it has to surface to breathe. And it does this at least once every 15 minutes. But this is far from the most interesting thing about the electric eel, because it is literally made for electricity. All the vital organs of this monster are located as close as possible to the head. The rest of the body is a giant living power bank, capable of charging anyone. The eel has special cells, electrocytes, which, with the help of potential differences, are able to accumulate voltage. The voltage of each cell is negligible, but when the eel discharges them all at the same time, an electric field is created around it, affecting everyone within the radius of action. And depending on the size of the fish as well as its purpose, such charges can be very painful, but not always. After all, this creature has adapted to produce different powers, and for this purpose there are 3 different organs inside. The first level is the most harmless. At this time, the eel emits low-voltage signals using the sax organ located in its tail. The voltage of such signals is only about 10 volts, but they perfectly help to navigate in space because the vision of this fish is very poorly developed. This is understandable. In such darkness, you shouldn't rely much on your eyes. In addition, this technique helps the hunter find prey in the water, which in turn prefers to freeze at the sight of this stun gun. But then the hunter changes strategy and a second organ comes into play, hunter's organ. It creates a high-voltage electric field around itself, which causes the victim's muscles to contract and gives him away. It is then that the nimble fish grabs its living prey with its mouth. That is, the hunter does not completely suppress the fish, but only slightly tickles it, forcing himself to be discovered. This is the principle by which the electric eel hunts in an aquarium, and this is what the hunter organ looks like. And if you connect electrodes to the aquarium, and finally the most dangerous option, it involves delivering discharges of maximum strength and frequency. For example, the voltage of each shock can reach from 600 to 860 volts, and the frequency is up to 400 shocks per second. And the main organ is capable of this. Such voltage is easily enough to paralyze a person, and if no one is nearby, he can choke in the water. Therefore, encounters with electric eels are always very dangerous. And of course, you should be very careful when removing such fish from the hook. Although this does not particularly prevent locals from fishing with this underwater battery, and sometimes they can come across such specimens. Even in such a small puddle, you can find a real river monster, and taking it without good protection is mortally dangerous, because it can cause involuntary contractions and even cardiac arrest. In addition, these fish are very easy to confuse with tree roots. For example, these are not roots at all, but live electric eels, and if I were to pass by that place, I would definitely not dare. In general, it is worth saying that local residents are very afraid of electric eels and constantly try to destroy them. After all, they can hide even in small puddles and attack completely unexpectedly. There are even known fatal cases after such attacks. Therefore, each message about eels is carefully checked, and people can spend hours scooping up water to find the culprit. But this is also associated with great danger, because unlike other fish, the eel is the first to attack. It tries to swim towards the offender and press as hard as possible so that the electric shock is maximum. Look how it looks in slow motion on a mannequin. That's why hunters are usually tied with ropes so that they can be pulled ashore if necessary. Needless to say, even the largest aquatic predator of the Amazon is not afraid of such a river battery. This caiman accidentally touched an eel, but look at its convulsions. The reptile cannot move, and only when the eel crawled back into the water, the caiman was able to move on. And this eel was caught on a fishing rod, but such easy prey always attracts caimans. This one also wanted to pull it off the hook, but it was not so easy. Look how powerfully the caiman beats its tail, simultaneously receiving an electric shock. It's good that it managed to open its mouth, because if you don't do this, here are the same characters. But the caiman grabbed the eel so hard that it cannot open its mouth, and the eel continues to charge the reptile with a quick charge. This action continues for almost a minute, and eventually the reptile falls to the bottom, showing no signs of life. Although, judging by the hind legs, the green one is slowly starting to come to his senses. But this video clearly shows how dangerous these underwater stun guns can be. Therefore, I think the dog will remember such a meeting for a long time. This is how dangerous and unpredictable this lover of puddles and swamps of South America turned out to be. Write your opinion about this underwater battery in the comments. And there are still many interesting heroes in the review ahead. These creatures can be called almost universal predators because they appeared in the Mesozoic era and have not changed that much over 240 million years. Just take a look at this rough image of a land crocodile that lived approximately 24 million years ago, and it differs very little from its modern descendants, except that its paws have become shorter. Well, if you look even further, the ancestors of crocodiles were warm-blooded animals, so by now there has been some upgrade. But looking at this monster, you wouldn't know it. The saltwater crocodile is the largest of the modern crocodiles and, according to some sources, can grow up to 23 feet in length and weigh more than 2,000 pounds. Moreover, the largest officially registered crocodile is a giant named Lo Long. It was 20 feet 21 inches long and weighed 2,370 pounds. And although there were stories about reptiles with a body length of about 30 feet, they were not documented. But giants 16 feet or more are very easy to find among saltwater crocodiles, and in this parameter, they are superior to their counterparts from the banks of the Nile. But do you know how you can tell them apart? When viewed from afar, the saltwater crocodile is generally darker in color than its Nile relative. And if you get closer, the saltwater crocodile has two small ridges from the eyes towards the nose, which are believed to protect the eyes from damage, and they were the reason for the name of the species. The comb also has better developed hearing, a larger brain and lighter armor, and it is also less likely to attack people. True, I do not recommend testing this in practice. The main weapon of attack of these monsters are huge and incredibly powerful jaws, with about 70 sharp teeth on board. Their number is enough so that no one can escape from the mouth. And it's unlikely that you'll be able to open this toothy press, because the jaw compression force of a 1,000-pound crocodile will easily be 3,500 pounds per square inch. What makes the crocodile's crests potentially the owner of the strongest bite? It can only be surpassed by sperm whales and killer whales, although this has not been confirmed. Is it any wonder that with such a mouth it easily crushes the bones and skulls of animals? Just listen to this sound. The back teeth of a crocodile are specially recessed and have a massive base, thanks to which not a single bone can stand in its mouth. But the fores, on the contrary, are very sharp and reach 3 inches in length, which is necessary for tearing apart thick-skinned prey. In addition, he is not afraid of losing part of his arsenal, because these reptiles change teeth up to 60 times during their lives. And our hero is not deprived of muscles. Even in young individuals, approximately 50% of the mass is musculature. Plus, his muscles are adapted to temperature changes and do not lose their strength even with a strong drop in body temperature. Moreover, the crocodile holds the record for the accumulation of lactic acid in the bones, and this directly affects endurance, and the largest individuals do not lose their strength for 4-6 hours. Resistance. Just think about these numbers. It is also incredibly frugal, dining on about 5 times less food than a lion of the same size. This is approximately only 4% of its mass in a week, and he drinks even less and is able to go without liquid for more than 100 days. Although this figure also depends on body weight, and newborn crocodiles can only go 20 days without drinking. And yes, this super predator can easily swim in the sea and without harm to itself. The saltwater crocodile has a gland on its tongue that secretes excess salt, which allows them to swim not only in coastal waters but also to go far into the ocean. Therefore, it has the widest habitat and is found not only in the north of Australia, but also along the entire coast of Southeast Asia, where they have chosen river deltas, lagoons, and mangrove swamps. Therefore, be careful if you want to dive into the blue Australian River, because an unpleasant surprise may await you underwater. But this is what happens if you throw a pig's head somewhere under the shore. Why is there a river there? Even in such a small puddle, an impressive-sized crocodile can hide. Moreover, this predator remains practically invisible until the very moment of the attack. Underwater, it moves very slowly, without creating any ripples even at shallow depths, so the potential victim remains in the dark until the last moment. The situation is aggravated by the fact that animals often have to go into the mud to drink water, and crocodiles successfully take advantage of this. They have a muscular tail, reaching 55% of their body length, and with its help, they accelerate very quickly. Birds, animals, and even fish become the prey of green hunters. At the same time, fishing also looks interesting. The crocodile opens its mouth and spreads its front paws to the sides. They have a large number of receptors, which are several times more sensitive than human fingertips, and thus a kind of arch is obtained near the mouth, detecting even the slightest movement of the fish. At the right moment, the crocodile makes a sharp swing with its mouth, and the musa trap closes. True, such fishing is not always crowned with success, but it can bring together more than a dozen crocodiles nearby, although they prefer to live alone. Unless during the mating season these reptiles gather in groups. Yes, this is to fight. They beat each other with sharp head blows, declaring their rights to the female. It's good that teeth are rarely used in this matter. But with females, crocodiles are surprisingly courteous, gallant, and such bubbles mean that the lady likes his advances. Females lay approximately 50 eggs, which they then carefully guard and protect from enemies. Even after the crocodiles hatch, the mother protects them for some time, but danger lurks everywhere, and usually only 2 cubs survive in a clutch. But if they were not eaten in the first year, they are unlikely to be in danger, and they can easily live for more than 80 or even more than 100 years. These are the real owners of reservoirs, and they behave accordingly. After all, it's easy to meet him like this, walking along a shallow river. They can even go to car crossings and sunbathe there, and you hardly want to disturb it in order to go around it. And if you dare to swim closer to the crocodile, he will immediately turn around and go to meet the guests. And he swims very quickly and can keep up with the boat for a long time. Moreover, approaching a sleeping crocodile is no less dangerous because during rest, they are able to turn off only one half of the brain, leaving the other working. And, as a rule, one of the crocodile's eyes is also open, which means that he is in control of the situation at any moment. Saltwater crocodiles attack almost all animals that find themselves near water. Even cattle can become prey for this hunter. But you need to act quickly, because soon other reptiles will notice such a trophy. And here, the crocodile's ability to eat up to 23% of its own weight at a time comes to the rescue. In order to tear off a piece of prey, it makes a sharp jerk with its mouth to the side, and this is a very effective method, literally tearing the meat into pieces. Although he can also use his famous spin. But on the ground, its action is no longer so dexterous and it will be more difficult to cope with large food. But in the water, he is a true king, even in coastal waters. After all, he is feared, including by such dangerous predators as sharks. Their interests may converge if the crocodile has prey, for example, a dead turtle. And then, the sharks will guard the crocodile until he makes a mistake. Far from the shore, he will no longer be able to keep his prey. And these sharks also try to take the crocodile's prey and bite its paw. But the crocodile also does not think of giving up and powerfully hits the water with its head. And then he even attacks and bites the impudent shark. Moreover, this is not an isolated case. Crocodiles can even deliberately hunt sharks, especially if they are smaller in size. And this also happens quite often. And here people decided to feed the toothy one. But something didn't go according to plan. The shark quickly grabbed a piece of meat. Well, the crocodile grabbed the shark. Although most likely, he is even happy with such an unexpected gift. People in general often try to feed crocodiles, but this should be done especially carefully, because with the help of its tail, the reptile strongly pushes off the water and can jump very high, or simply use it to quickly jerk forward. And in combination with a lightning-fast reaction and a powerful mouth, any wrong move can become fatal. Even at crocodile farms, where visitors are entertained by feeding green monsters and the trainer does not always have time to remove his stick, pay attention to the sound of the mouth. Don't put your finger in anyone's mouth, so it's a piece of cake for such an animal to bite through a watermelon. But crocodiles also like to have fun, and from time to time they don't mind rolling around in the mud like this, and can even let this little lizard sit on their head, although not for long. This green hunter turned out to be so dangerous, but incredibly interesting. The killer whale is the largest carnivorous dolphin, which can reach a length of 33 feet and a mass of 18,000 pounds. These mammals can be recognized by their contrasting black and white coloration, short a head and a giant mouth, which they willingly put into action. The habitat of the predator covers almost the entire world ocean, including both the coastal strip and open waters. Killer whales are very social animals. Depending on their habitat, they travel in groups of 2 to 200 individuals, which are connected by both close family ties and common interests, the main of which is hunting. The diet of individual populations consists almost entirely of fish. Through joint efforts, dolphins drive the shoal closer to the surface and take turns beating it with a giant tail, after which they can only swallow the stunned prey. However, most killer whales prefer much more serious trophies. The seashore is a favorite refuge of seals, where they breed and feel safe, but this feeling is mistaken when huge, hungry dolphins appear nearby. The killer whale is the only whale that purposefully throws itself ashore to grab a panicked victim. Of course, with an incredible weight, such attempts are fraught with deadly danger, but years of evolution have allowed hunters to perfect this trick to incredible accuracy, allowing them to balance between two worlds in order to overtake an elusive target and return to the sea. With strong jerks, the predator quickly subdues the prey, simultaneously separating the skin from the flesh. Killer whales seem to fall into a frenzy, starting to uncontrollably destroy and absorb all living things that will climb into the giant mouth. Interestingly, the killer whale does not always attack the target. It seems that she risks her life to play cat and mouse, although perhaps in this way, the mother shows the younger generation all the subtleties of hunting, passing the skill by inheritance. Despite its impressive size, the killer whale can hunt at extremely shallow depths. And this applies not only to ejection to the shore. Predators know perfectly well when teenagers are separated from their mother and begin an independent life. Behind the rocky shore, seals seem to be reliably protected, but even here, giant dolphins easily find a loophole. Given the depth, this is a very dangerous event, but the extraction is worth the risk. Shallow water is more than compensated by the carelessness of the victim who manages to be caught off guard. A sudden attack, and the hunters rush to drag the tall-coveted trophy into their familiar habitat, where massive teeth more than 4 inches long quickly cope with their task. Sea lions are extremely intelligent seals that successfully hunt fast and agile fish, but the size makes these mammals a desirable target for killer whales. The best protection is a gregarious lifestyle. When seals are aware of danger, each of them tries to be alert. It is not easy to catch such maneuverable creatures by surprise, but if a swimmer manages to be away from the shore alone, trouble will not keep him waiting. The killer whale, like a sharpened spear, pierces a careless victim. See, the lion is still alive, but the hunters are in no hurry to attack again. It's like they're playing with their prey, which is desperately trying to get to shore. With each attack, killer whales exhaust the seal. Its teeth can also be very dangerous, but a coordinated attack simply does not leave the poor guy a chance to defend himself, and a series of attacks with a powerful tail puts an end to the chase. Killer whales are a deadly danger, even for gray whales. Of course, adult giants weighing more than 44,000 pounds are hardly interested even such skilled hunters. But the cubs become a desirable target. Being in close contact, the fugitives are trying to swim away in shallow water. In this situation, dolphins are more like a pack of wolves because they throw all their strength to separate the cub from the mother. The tail of a gray whale is a serious weapon, but experienced killer whales skillfully wedge themselves between the mother and the cub. And if such a tactic is successful, the lonely baby has almost no chance of survival. Although sometimes even blue whales, the largest animals on the planet, can become the object of attention. But an attack on an adult is rather an exception to the rule. Besides, it looks more like entertainment because it didn't go further than intimidation. However, medium-sized whales may well become prey when numerical superiority becomes a decisive factor. Even bloodthirsty sharks should be careful.
because inferior species often fall on the dining table of killer whales at the same time. Dolphins often attack them for the sake of a nutritious liver alone. At the same time, in recent years, more and more cases of killer whale attacks on the great white shark have been recorded, as evidenced by the carcasses brought ashore, which there is no liver, a typical handwriting of predatory dolphins. Attacking with a cohesive team, killer whales tire out a huge opponent, after which they try to turn the shark over with a blow of a powerful tail, which, as is known, causes tonic immobility, a state in which even the most toothy predator can become easy prey. As for the relations within the pack, unlike wolves, killer whales are very friendly and peaceful, so even tense moments do without a fight. In terms of brain size, they are in second place among all animals, second only to the sperm whale. In terms of complexity, the killer whale society is closer to elephants and higher primates. But when it comes to hunting, predators do not hesitate to attack even distant relatives, other dolphins. Tripling in size, killer whales are inferior to targets in agility, but with incredible endurance, they are ready for a protracted hunt. Similar to the tactics with fish, hunters drive prey into a trap. Communicating with the help of clicks and a kind of whistle, underwater wolves coordinate actions, beating off the chosen target from the pack. They exhaust her pursuit, and then they go to the ram. The disoriented victim is still trying to break away, but she has no chance against the coordinated actions of the giants. Even among the ice, these smart creatures find a way not to stay hungry. Their favorite prey also lives here, but on a giant ice raft, the seal has nothing to fear until the ingenuity of the team reaches a new level. Moving synchronously, killer whales create a powerful wave that crushes the ice floe into small pieces. But getting to the goal is still problematic, so the dolphins make a move again. This time, they launch a surface wave of such force that the seal is simply washed away from its modest shelter. Fearing a backlash, the team blows bubbles, confusing the panicked victim, which allows you to make the final attack without unnecessary hassle. Despite their frightening size, killer whales almost do not attack people, and rare exceptions are rather an accident. Fortunately, they are not interested in people as a food source at all. Killer whales are real centenarians. If males live for about 50 years, then females may well live up to the 100-year anniversary. The number of killer whales is estimated at about 50,000 individuals, having the intelligence of a dolphin, the size of a whale, and the hunting instinct of a shark. These creatures have no enemies. So without human intervention, they are likely to only thrive. If you like the issue, please support it with a like. Comment.
First, I'll tell you a little about this interesting, but a very scary fish. Moray eels are fish of the eel order, which form their own family, Moray eels. There are about 200 species of Moray eels in total, and they all have characteristic features, making them very recognizable underwater. First of all, its long, flexible, often covered with mucus, snake-like body, which has no scales. A huge head with an equally huge mouth, strewn with dozens of sharp-like needles, teeth, and small ones, round, evil eyes. Here is the image of a Moray eel, which you will meet if you dive somewhere in the Mediterranean or Red Sea. Such monsters reach lengths of up to 10 feet and weights of up to 66 pounds. Although the average Moray eel does not exceed 5 feet in size, this fish has a very long history, and it has been known since ancient times. The ancient Romans were the first who started keeping Moray eels in aquariums. Usually small ponds were dug for this purpose. After all, its meat was considered a delicacy. But they were also not against using Moray eels in other capacities. For example, Emperor Nero loved to throw men into a pond with Moray eels poorly working or simply undesirable slaves. A terrible and painful death, just in the style of ancient Rome. But in general, these fish are quite timid and do not attack a person first. Of course, unless they are angered or provoked, then she will fight with incredible fury and can cause very serious injury. Moray eels do not swim very fast, despite its laterally flattened body. They don't need high speed after all. The favorite hunting method of predators is ambush. Here, the long, flexible body, allowing them to hide in very small holes and crevices. The presence of a hunter is only revealed by their huge mouth and greedy eyes. From there, they attack passing fish or other careless prey. The appearance of moray eels is amazing. What colors are not found in this predator? For example, this is not a banana at all, and the Brazilian moray eel. And this is a small ribbon moray eel in its form. But the color always performs a camouflage function and helps them blend into the terrain in which it hunts. Even the inside of its mouth is colored to match the color of the moray eel. Moray eels are excellent sniffers. After all, it knows about the approach of prey mainly by smell. Moreover, it has 4 nostrils, 2 of which have special tubes. These tubes move chaotically, imitating worms. It turns out to be a kind of fishing rod nose. Olfactory receptors are scattered throughout the moray eel's body. This allows you to understand at any time of the day and at any depth, is there anything tasty nearby? But the eyes see rather poorly and only complete the picture. But its real highlight is the mouth. Usually it contains about 30 thin and sharp teeth, which penetrate deep into the prey and leave serious wounds. Plus, the teeth are often curved backwards, which greatly reduces the chances of salvation. But that's not all. After all, moray eels have a second jaw called the pharyngeal jaw. It is located far from the main one, but at the moment of attack it comes close to it and helps to grab the prey. Then, with the help of ligaments, it moves back and forth and pushes the future food further. But the moray eel does not have a tongue, and it is not particularly needed with such a steep jaw. These predators even have their own dentists who monitor their teeth and keep them clean. This role is performed by cleaner shrimps, which actually work for food. They easily climb into the mouths of predators without fear of being eaten, and do their job there. Of course, moray eels look very scary, especially when they open their mouths. It seems that another moment and the predator will attack you. But in reality, this is nothing more than a feature of breathing. The fact is that the moray eel constantly opens and closes its mouth to ensure the circulation of water through the gills. After all, they don't have gill covers. Therefore, such behavior does not show its aggressiveness at all. On the contrary, moray eels can be very kind, if I may say so, and simply adore being stroked. Look how the moray eel opens its mouth and enjoys such stroking. An excellent option for those who are allergic to all sorts of cats and dogs. It doesn't make noise, you don't need to walk it, you just have to have time to feed it fish. By the way, moray eels often live in the aquariums of wealthy owners. But it's not that simple. You need to carefully select the size of the future home for the moray eel and its neighbors. After all, monotonous food and cramped conditions are a very significant reason for stress, and then passions and faces often happen. As a rule, in the end there is only one winner, but he or she can live in captivity for about 10 years. Of course, if you don't get someone larger. In general, the moray eel is a solitary and usually nocturnal hunter, who sometimes still finds a partner. Sometimes a perch swims up to its home and invites it to go fishing. If the moray eel agrees, the perch swims forward and shows the place from where it needs to lure the prey. After all, the moray eel is much more flexible and can crawl into any crevice. And if successful, he gets a piece of the prey. Let's get to see what the moray eel is capable of in action. In the first video, the green moray eel is out for a night hunt. It explores the seabed, deftly maneuvering between the stones, and finds its first prey. A deft throw, and the fish is already in its teeth. But such a dinner is not enough for the big moray eel, and it continues to hunt. Here is another target, and it also ends up in the predator's mouth. And this stone fish, which is very poisonous, and its dorsal fin is covered with spines that contain toxic poison. But you can hardly tell by smell what kind of fish is in front of you. And the moray eel attacks it. It tries to swallow the prey, but the stonefish has rather large fins, which it is not going to fold. The moray eel has to let go of such an inconvenient prey. At least it did not prick itself. And another similar attack. Moreover, the potential victim does not try to swim away at all. She probably knows that it will all be over soon. And this is a toadfish from the clownfish family. They all have a very bizarre appearance, and these fish swim even worse than they walk on the bottom. Although they are also predators, this fish does not understand that it is slowly walking straight into the moray eel's mouth. And the moray eel is not going to miss such a chance. True, it overestimated its strength and cannot swallow the prey. Apparently, it needs to look for someone smaller. And this one, it seems, is a very small fish that can easily be swallowed. But immediately after the attack, it begins to swell. After all, this is a puffer fish. Like a ball, it flies out of the moray eel's mouth. The moray can't do anything. What an interesting defense mechanism. A similar situation, however, this moray eel is somewhat larger, and it does not want to miss its lunch at all. It tries to swallow the prickly ball, shakes it from side to side, and in the end, it does not succeed. True, I don't know how tasty such a dinner was, but this is rather an exception to the rule, and usually such fish manage to survive. Moray eels also love squids, which sometimes swim right up to the shore to save themselves. Moreover, even very small moray eels can attack them. For example, here a squid has swum right up to the shore. Look how it changes color. But soon everything falls into place, and a moray eel appears nearby. It attacks the squid and tries to grab its tentacles. Soon a second moray eel appears and, apparently, the squid is doomed. It is already exhausted and cannot swim anywhere. Here are already 3 moray eels nearby, attacking one after another. Such is wild nature. Lobsters are also a favorite delicacy for moray eels, but they still need to be eaten. Here a green moray eel is testing a spiny lobster, but it is constantly on the alert and does not allow it to attack. This moray eel did not tempt fate and swam on, although not all moray eels are so cautious. Here, having only seen potential prey, the huntress immediately attacked it and, as we can see, swallowed the lobster without any difficulty. The crab also often becomes prey for these night hunters. The hard shell does not pose any difficulty for the moray eel, and the chances in such a fight are far from in favor of the crab. But they can also spoil such a dinner a little. For example here, with a deft movement of the claw, the crab accurately grabbed the moray eel by the eye. This enraged the huntress, and she rushed in pursuit. But at least he did not give up without a fight. And this is hemothorax, an amazing moray eel that can crawl out onto land. It can stay in the air while its gills are wet, which allows the moray eel to go quite far from the ocean. And its target is fast crabs that sit on rocks and do not expect an attack at all. The crab has a very fast reaction, but the moray eel jumps out after it and crawls like a snake. Her efforts are rewarded, and now she can crawl back into the ocean. Octopuses are probably the most desirable prey. They are large, soft, and non-venomous. Even small moray eels try to grab a piece of their own, but they don't always choose the right prey. This moray eel attacked an octopus, but it managed to release a cloud of ink in time and escape. But the moray eel is not very happy with this result. Moray eels often explore burrows in search of octopuses. They can crawl into any crevice and get their prey from there. This moray eel was lucky. She found a large octopus in the corals. Now she can pull it out of there. The octopus releases a protective cloud, but this does not stop the moray eel, and soon she gets her prey. All that remains is to swim to a secluded place and eat it. So the octopus was unlucky. It ran into a moray eel ambush itself. Without thinking twice, it grabbed the poor thing and started shaking it from side to side. It had to lose one tentacle to save its life. But it doesn't matter. The tentacles will soon grow back. Unless, of course, no one eats it first. And this is how a moray eel begins to dig a hole if it feels that there is someone in it. And today it was lucky to dig up an octopus. But if there is nothing suitable to eat, then you can try to attack your relatives. And moray eels often do this. Here the moray eel noticed potential prey and immediately attacked it. The rotation of the body begins, which leaves jagged wounds on the body of the victim. But it does not give up yet. The moray eel fails to escape and immediately tries to swim away, but the second moray eel immediately catches up with it and, grabbing it with its jaws, wins. The winner takes its prey to the corals, where it begins its meal. Here, more than anywhere else, size matters. Often larger moray eels find and pull smaller individuals out of an ambush and then eat them. Here it is, either you or you. But sometimes such fights end unexpectedly and the opponents go their separate ways. Although moray eels and snakes are very similar, they can hardly be called friends. Look at what they do to each other when they meet, and everything will fall into place. This is a conchacride, a very venomous sea snake. The high toxicity of the poison is necessary, since fish are much less sensitive to poison than warm-blooded animals. And when meeting a moray eel, it immediately goes on the attack. The moray eel also bites the snake, but here it is at a disadvantage, since the snake's venom is already starting to work. In such fights, snakes almost always emerge victorious and eat their prey entirely. But moray eels are capable of attacking even small sharks. And here she grabbed a reef shark. The shark was simply swimming at the wrong time, in the wrong place, and now she can't do anything. The moray eel presses its prey to the corals to conveniently turn it around and start eating. And now only the shark's tail is sticking out to save the moray eel. But apparently something went wrong, and the shark simply didn't fit in the moray eel's stomach. Then she just takes and spits out the still living shark, which immediately swims away. It's not every day that you get such a chance. But reef sharks know about this behavior of their neighbors and constantly inspect the corals. If they see a moray eel, they immediately try to pull it out of its hiding place. If the shark manages to do this, then the moray eel has no chance of salvation because reef sharks always swim in groups. Sometimes it happens that moray eels suffer from very unusual animals. For example, here a moray eel falls dead with a sea urchin needle in its cheek. But it is difficult to say what caused its death. Scuba divers also sometimes become objects of interest for these creatures. For example, here a moray eel swam towards a man, but a light blow of the camera to the nose cooled his ardor. And here a moray eel did not hesitate to take a bag from a diver. Usually divers keep fish in such bags to feed predators, so it is clear what attracted the moray eel to it. And this moray eel apparently got tired of eating fish and octopuses, and it tried to grab a duck. Well, what if? Although the duck was not particularly scared of such an attack. Such an interesting fish was on our review today. I hope you learned something new. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, because this is the only way I understand which topics you like more. The catfish is truly one of the largest freshwater fish, and there is a documented giant with a body weight of 674 pounds and an age of approximately 80 years. True. Now you are unlikely to see such a thing, because even 220-pound catfish are extremely rare. Although this may be for the better, because the fish is unusually strong and persistent, its entire body is designed for powerful jerks, and catfish use this when hunting. The long body of the fish closer to the tail has a noticeable flattened shape, which, in combination with a very long anal fin and a powerful tail, gives the catfish enormous strength. And he skillfully uses such an oar if he needs to quickly go to the bottom. After all, this is a bottom-dwelling fish that usually spends all its free time in snags, under sunken fish and stumps, or in other strong places. For the same reason, the color of fish is dominated by brown colors and small dark spots. This allows the predator to perfectly camouflage itself on literally any terrain and even in underwater vegetation. Only his mustache gives him away. The catfish may simply rest quietly on the bottom and can sometimes be confused with a large log. But this log, if necessary, can begin to move, and quite quickly, because instead of scales, catfish are covered with a large amount of mucus, which only facilitates underwater maneuvers. Although due to their size, they are still not as agile as most fish, and they do not see very well. But for successful hunting, they do not need this, because the rest of the senses are well developed in fish. Its nostrils contain many receptors, and the fish is able to smell an edible object from afar. And in addition, they have both an inlet and an outlet, which allows water to continuously circulate and obtain the most accurate information. It has approximately 250,000 taste buds in its mouth, lips, fins, and throughout the body. Thus, catfish can sense taste even from a distance. And his whiskers are located not only below, but also above his head, so that he perfectly catches the waves from his prey, no matter where it is. Therefore, the catfish's equipment is in complete order, and one can only envy them because their senses are superior to any other freshwater fish, and the warmer the water, the more acutely they work. Well, then the catfish's mouth comes into play, which is not only huge, but also studded with a large number of sharp teeth. True, They are quite small, but this does not in the least interfere with the hunt, especially since the catfish slams its mouth with tremendous force. It makes a suction movement with its jaws and produces a sharp clap, so that it is almost impossible to escape from there. And these claps look very menacing live. Interestingly, catfish eat absolutely everything. It can be fish, crustaceans and mollusks, birds, and even careless pets. Even human remains were found in their stomachs. True, most likely, these people did not die from a catfish attack. There are no documented cases of catfish attacking a person. But the fact that they are river nurses has been known for a long time. The catfish will happily eat this chicken leg, which was carefully thrown into the pond along with the camera. Look, the giant swims up and in one fell swoop sucks food into its mouth, after which it quickly swims away. And of course, catfish are not averse to eating even such small mollusks. They die from lack of oxygen in the water, after which they float to the surface, and there hungry fish are already waiting for them. True, such a gift lasts only a few days a year, and it is very difficult to support growth with them, so they are not averse to eating fish. Catfish are not as fast as, for example, pike, so they prefer to drive their prey into shallow water or closer to the shore. They can even hunt together, forming a moving catfish wall. True, it is not coordinated and everyone acts for themselves. This somewhat reduces the effectiveness, but still it is higher than single catfish, and catfish can choose more complex goals for themselves. These pigeons fly to the river to drink water and swim, but they have already been hunted. As soon as someone gapes or goes too far, huge jaws appear from the water. In a split second, pigeons hide in the mouth of a catfish. And fish often wait for such careless birds in the riffles. And even if the catfish grabs the paw, the pigeon will no longer be able to escape. Such areas are often protected by catfish from other competitors, and some have become specialized in pigeons, and these birds can make up to 80% of their diet. But only small predators hunt this way. For large catfish, the risk of being stranded is too great, and the food is not so satisfying. Large catfish are usually found in deep holes and attack from ambush, or if necessary, they swim out of them to see who made so much noise. Sometimes such specimens emerge from the depths. Catfish can even attack smaller individuals, and this catfish almost became the prey of a giant, although it itself is not small in size. Such versatility in nutrition allowed catfish to take root very well in any body of water, and historically lived in the basins of the Dnieper and Dniester rivers. It has successfully migrated to almost all European rivers and thrives there, gradually exterminating local predators. And their fertility is also very good. For example, the female lays approximately 25,000 eggs per 2 pounds of weight. Of course, not all of them will become fry, and even fewer will survive to become adult fish. But catfish reproduce quite efficiently. Interestingly, after laying eggs, the female immediately swims away, and the offspring are protected by the father. Young catfish often live together. However, they do this only until they are 4 years old. They have to spread out because predators become large and they need more and more food. And if it is not caught by fishermen in a net or on a fishing rod, then a 4-year-old catfish can easily live up to 80 years because it has practically no natural enemies. This large river fish turned out to be so amazing, and I hope that it was interesting and that you learned something new about catfish. Then don't be lazy to evaluate it. The blue minke whale vomited, or the more familiar blue whale, a real airship of the underwater world of animals, which for many years remained difficult to study. Even scientists specializing in whales had little understanding of its appearance, and at present, many of the whale's features are not fully understood and raise numerous questions. However, we now know that this is an incredible mammal, recognized as the largest living on the planet and, quite possibly, the heaviest in history. After all, the length of its body can reach 108 feet and is comparable to a large passenger aircraft, and its weight can go beyond the figures of 330,000 pounds. Its tongue alone is comparable to the weight of an African elephant, and its circulatory system holds about 8,000 liters of blood. Although the information that a whale's heart is comparable in size to a car and that a child can swim along its aorta is actually a myth. There are plenty of such photographs on the internet, but this is just a model of a whale's heart and greatly enlarged. And this is what the real heart of a 72-foot blue whale looks like. Of course, it is also huge, but there can be no talk of any comparison with a car. The smooth skin of the forcefully elongated and slender body gives the underwater beauty excellent streamlining, and even the presence of grooves on the throat and belly does not interfere with this at all. On the contrary, such skin folds further improve hydrodynamic properties and also allow the pharynx to stretch more when swallowing prey. After all, if luck brings you a feast on such a scale, then without hesitation just open your mouth wider. Such aggregations of tiny crustaceans are called krill, and for the whale this is the main diet. Considering his size, it is not difficult to guess that every day he has to sweat a lot for the sake of a hearty lunch. After all, its daily norm ranges from 8,000 pounds to 17,000 pounds of krill per day, which is approximately 40 million units of individual crustaceans, and only for one adult whale. And at one time, he swallows over 130 pounds of food. As soon as the krill is in the mouth, its elastic tongue stretches across the entire cavity, literally forming a bag, and it also pushes out water. And thanks to the whalebone, which acts as a colander, the crustaceans remain in place and can now be swallowed. The whale's mouth is a dense row of plates, similar in their chemical composition to hair. It grows throughout its life and can eventually reach about a meter. Judge for yourself. Here they are. It actually feels very similar to plastic. Now, for scale, I found another narrow one, longer than what I showed before. Well, look, I'm 1.83 meters tall. Its lower jaw is also so heavy that sometimes it is necessary to turn over during a meal in order to completely close its mouth. But in general, not everything is so bad, and blue whales have adapted quite well to hungry times because, due to the accumulated fat on their diet, they are not afraid of a whole month of hunger strikes. Despite their wide distribution, and this is almost the entire world ocean, it is still quite difficult to meet them, because blue whales prefer to live at a depth of up to 650 feet. But if you're lucky, he may not be ashamed to show his tail. This is a very rare sight, because due to his weight, he is not able to emerge from the water and make such impressive jumps. How to assemble it? Periodically, the submarine rises to the surface to breathe a little, releasing air saturated with water vapor from a special breathing organ, forming the well-known fountain. In each species, by the way, the structure of the organ is different. For example, in toothed whales it is formed by only one nostril with two baleen, and in sperm whales there are two nostrils, one of which is completely overgrown during evolution. In any case, while watching whales, such a geyser will be difficult to miss, and I assure you that you will definitely not forget it. But this ocean dweller can boast of more than just size and weight. Its voice signals reach 189 decibels with a frequency of 10 to 15 hertz, which makes it also the loudest on the planet. This is another of its many mysteries because, unlike toothed individuals, the blue whale is deprived of sound lips, so sounds are reproduced in the pharynx. But there are also no vocal cords in it. Produces the loudest sound in the world, but without the presence of special organs for this. This leads us to a dead end, and so far there is no answer to the question. But still, you must admit, his singing sounds fascinating and even a little gloomy. The unsolved mysteries of cetaceans include another interesting but completely unknown individual. She was nicknamed the 52 Hertz whale, or he is known as the loneliest whale in the world. probably the only specimen of its kind that sings at a frequency of 52 hertz. It was this feature that served as the basis for the opinion that none of the other whales are able to hear his voice and answer his call. No one has ever seen this individual. It is not even clear what genus it belongs to. But from time to time, scientists record its signals at various points in the ocean, and there are still very few opportunities to study it. Perhaps he is a hybrid or a mutant, or perhaps we will never be able to find out. The ocean hides too much, and humanity is ready to conquer it. By nature, blue whales are loners. They unite in small groups only during hunting or migration. But even in such cases, they prefer to keep their distance because they also have no problems with exchanging information. Their built-in radio receiver is capable of receiving signals from other individuals at a distance of as much as 20 miles. However, when it comes to starting a family, whales take this very seriously. These are monogamous animals, therefore, forming a pair with each other. They will never die again, and in 10-12 months, another record holder will be born, the largest cub on the planet, 9 meters long and weighing up to 3 tons. By the way, for those who didn't know, a baby whale is called a calf, because whales are classified as artiodactyls. Be that as it may, reproduction among whales is a very drawn-out process, and at best it happens once every 2 years. And the difficulties do not end there, because calves, as the most defenseless, always remain the #1 target for predators. As for enemies, they are practically absent. The only thing that can be singled out is the underwater mafia of killer whales, which from time to time are not averse to chasing whales or including them in their diet. Moreover, the hunt is not so much for the whales themselves, but for their tongues, lips, and throats, the favorite delicacies of black and white bandits. The whales themselves often remain uneaten, but for the most part such cases are rarely recorded, and killer whales have plenty of other objects to hunt. But man, at one time, managed to leave a big mark on their population. The view was practically inaccessible until the second half of the 19th century, but in the 20th century, it bore the brunt. Floating factories for cutting up whale carcasses mercilessly exterminated the giants, which led to a significant reduction in the population. For example, in 1931 alone, more than 29,000 blue whales were caught. Whale meat, sparrow, and baleen are what people exterminated whales for, and by the second half of the 20th century, the species was practically destroyed. It was then that its fishing was completely banned. However, the whales are recovering extremely slowly, and now their population numbers no more than 10,000 individuals. We can only hope that one day the ocean will boil again with the life of these beautiful colossi, and humanity will no longer allow such tragedies to happen again. That's all. I hope it was interesting and you learned something new about these underwater giants. Then don't be lazy to evaluate the roles. Write in the comments who to talk about next time. Subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And I say goodbye to you for a while. Bye.